But, Mr. Speaker, as I begin to speak, I want to first offer my deepest condolences to the family of the member for St. James South, who I think lost his brother this morning on behalf of the Barbados Labour Party. And I also want to offer my deepest sympathy as well to the family of Peter Scott, who was a director of the Rural Development Commission. Peter died this morning. So I just want to pay my respect on behalf of the Barbados Labour Party to those members and the family of those two members. But, Mr. Speaker, yesterday I sat and I listened to the Minister of Finance present the estimates 2018-2019, and he also presented the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan 2018. And a prayer came to mind as I was listening. And this prayer, most of you know it. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Mr. Speaker, we in the Barbados Labour Party accept that we cannot change the course of this Parliament. It appears that the Right Honourable Prime Minister is taking this Parliament down uncharted waters. And it is evident that after the 6th of March 2018, that the government and the cabinet of the Democratic Labour Party will have no oversight, no parliamentary oversight, and they can do whatever they wish with respect to the financial affairs of this country. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, those good civil servants, the permanent secretaries and the deputy permanent secretaries, whom I hold in high esteem, whom I know have integrity and credibility, will see it fit to make sure that no minister browbeats them to misuse the funds, taxpayers' funds, for their own political gains.
Good point.
And I know I have the confidence in the permanent secretaries, and I have the confidence in the public servants to exercise a duty of care on behalf of the citizens of this country. But, Mr. Speaker, the prayer also reminds us that it takes courage to change the things that you can. And the leader of the opposition has asked the Minister of Finance to tell the people of this country the true state of affairs of this country, of the financial affairs of this country. These estimates laid in this House, in my opinion, and in the opinion of the members on this side, are pure cosmetics. It doesn't take any courage to produce these estimates at such a time, Mr. Speaker. And the questions that have been asked by the leader of the opposition on behalf of this great institution, I wish to spend a little time going through a few elements of the questions asked. And I will just repeat, not to be repetitive, Mr. Speaker, I will just repeat two of the questions on which I will base the rest of my presentation. And she asked yesterday, Mr. Speaker, what is the level of the international reserves today? She also produced a statement late yesterday highlighting that the state of the reserves is a cause for concern, as I speak to you this morning, Mr. Speaker, through you, Mr. Speaker. And the next one, Mr. Speaker, question 8. How does the Minister of Finance intend to create the fiscal room necessary to pay for the renewal of a crumbling infrastructure that is negatively affecting our country, like the sewer system, the roads, buses, garbage truck. That was just to name a few. And I will spend the rest of my presentation going through the elements that relate to those two questions, Mr. Speaker. And the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan, Mr. Speaker, was presented to this lower chamber. And I want to say to the people of this country that prior to the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan, and I must congratulate all those members of the social partnership that would have contributed to the production of this document. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, whether civil servant or private sector, we have talented people in this country. But I want to share something with the public, Mr. Speaker, and this lower chamber. Prior to the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan, which was laid in this House yesterday, I want to share with the public and this lower chamber the amount of plans that were brought to this country that this government would have said, with these plans and the implementation of these plans, this country would return to economic growth and respectability. And Mr. Speaker, I will list them. There are 5 prior to this Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan. And the first one, Mr. Speaker, the medium-term fiscal strategy 2010 to 2014, that is one. The second one, Mr. Speaker, the revised medium-term fiscal strategy 2010 to 2014, that is 2, Mr. Speaker. The third one, Mr. Speaker, the medium-term development plan 2010-2014, Mr. Speaker. The fourth one, Mr. Speaker, the medium-term growth and development strategy 2013, Mr. Speaker. That's 4. And the fifth one, Mr. Speaker, the 19th month fiscal consolidation program 2013-2015. Now, plus the ministerial financial statements. Now, Mr. Speaker, these were the 5 plans presented by the Democratic Labour Party through the Minister of Finance before the Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan. And I don't like to make these statements, Mr. Speaker, but given the Democratic Labour Party, this plan, the hard work that has gone into this plan, it is like giving a horse Ribena, and it equates to giving manure to rotten canes. Because this Democratic Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, will put this on shelf 13, like they have done with the other plans, Mr. Speaker. I have the confidence in them to do that. That's the confidence I have in the Democratic Labour Party to shelve this plan like they have done with the other plans. No implementation. Of course, Mr. Speaker, we know that the Democratic Labour Party suffers from an implementation deficit because all of these grand plans and these grand ideas working the civil servants very hard and then paying them any money, no increases for 10 years, but thank you, civil servants, bear with us, we will rescue you. But they have presented this plan again, and I say without a shadow of a doubt, this Democratic Labour Party, this speaks to a bureaucratic inertia of this government. Bureaucracy of inertia of this government, Mr. Speaker. They're in a state of flux. They cannot get anything implemented. Don't matter how many plans you bring to this Democratic Labour Party, it becomes a problem. But anyhow, Mr. Speaker, let me spend a little time on one aspect of this sustainable recovery plan, and I wish to tie it in with the estimates, Mr. Speaker. One aspect of the estimate. It falls under the Right Honourable Prime Minister's head 13, Energy and Natural Resources. Mr. Speaker. And
yes, I remember.
Surely, because he speaks the bureaucracy of inertia. And I'm struggling, sir, to really find out what it is he's referring to.
That is not a case of misleading the chamber. If you want the member to explain what he means because you don't understand it, I suppose you can ask that, and that'd be up to him. But I remember
I would like the member to explain.
Okay, no point of order. The member has told you.
I expect, Mr. Speaker, I expect that from the honourable member for Christchurch South.
Very well.
When I say it speaks to a bureaucratic inertia of this government, tell him look in the dictionary, Mr. Speaker. I am not here to explain anything because it wastes our time because, like I said, Mr. Speaker, it wastes our time, Mr. Speaker, because they have wasted time with this recovery sustainable plan. They have wasted time, Mr. Speaker. They have wasted time with this plan. So I will not explain anything to them. But let me move on. Mr. Speaker, page 21 on the head 13, the Prime Minister, Energy and Natural Resources. Energy and Natural Resources. This speaks to the Public Sector Smart Energy Program, IDB and EU funded project. And when you look at page 21 of the estimates, and those of you who are not in the chambers, you can follow, it speaks to $10 million that have been allocated for machinery and equipment under this sub-program 457. And I heard the member for St. Michael Northwest, he spoke to this at length, Mr. Speaker, with respect to procuring street lights, photovoltaic systems, all of the energy efficiency requirements that this fund would have placed on this government to execute, with a view to, and it links directly with the level of international reserves. And I'm going to speak to that because they have not utilized the funds, and come now 2018, 2019, they have budgeted another $8 million from the fund that sat there for a whole year and they did nothing with respect to energy efficiency. Now tell me that's not a state of flux. Tell me that's not a state of flux. So, Mr. Speaker, that is just one element. That is just one element. Let's speak to page 74 of this plan. Let's speak to page 74 of this plan. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is the level of international reserves that we have questioned from the Minister of Finance, the member for St. Michael Northwest. We have asked him to tell this country the true state of the international reserves. Right? And objective 14 speaks to increase foreign exchange savings from direct investment in renewable energy, electricity generation. And Mr. Speaker, the facts are here to show that after 10 years of a Democratic Labour Party government, Mr. Speaker, renewable energy is still on the back burner. And why I say that is just showing speech with these books and these plans. 5% of the electricity generated in this country is from renewable energy. Only 5%. Within the last 10 years, Mr. Speaker, 5% of electricity generated in this country is from renewable energy. And there's a serious thing. I go further to let you know that 15% of the electricity generated is consumed by the tourism industry. 15%. And I go further to let you know that 30% of the electricity generated in this country goes to the Barbados Water Authority, or is used by the Barbados Water Authority. So that speaks to 45% of the electricity generated in this country being used by a statutory body and government entities. And what have they done? I will go further, Mr. Speaker. The Transport Board accounts for 35% of fuel imports in this country. The Transport Board accounts for 35% of the fuel imports in this country, Mr. Speaker. And to cap it all off, the electricity accounts for 50% of the fuel import bill, and transportation 35%, 30 to 35%. Transportation, I said. Transportation, 30 to 35% of the fuel import bill. And you can see, Mr. Speaker, that the Democratic Labour Party, despite all its efforts to present all these recovery plans, you can see that it has lagged with respect to renewable energy. You can see that it has lagged as it relates to renewable energy. And I will go further. What are the action items listed in this plan, Mr. Speaker, to achieve 100% renewable energy as stated in the plan? You need action items, Mr. Speaker. You can't just produce a glossy, lovely book, Barbados Sustainable Recovery Plan 2018, with no action plans. And we have money being spent on fuel imports, and we are speaking about our foreign reserves at very critical level. These are savings, and this study that I will present to you, and I spoke about this in this chamber earlier, because the member for St. Michael South Central, instead of he spent most of his time focusing on the Caribbean Hotel Energy Efficiency Action Program, which is the Shanat study. This is a document that government was part of since 2012. He is looking to see how much berths he can build, and if he can get the berth reach as far as Whole Town. So he had berth 6, berth 7, berth 8. That is what he's focusing on, as opposed to looking at the key projects that can save this country foreign exchange. That can save the foreign exchange. 36 detailed audits were done, Mr. Speaker, on hotels in this country. There were 30 walkthroughs of energy assessments. And it showed, Mr. Speaker, that you can save at least 20 to 30% of the electricity consumed through air conditioning and lighting if we implement the energy efficiency study that was presented in this Shanat report, the Caribbean Hotel Energy Efficiency Action Program. This came to the House before. This is a report that government has this report, and nothing has been done. But yet you have a grand plan about moving to 100% renewable by 2037. In addition, Mr. Speaker, I ain't sharing any details, because giving you all details, like I said, is like putting manure to old cane, to rotten cane. You're not going to use it. This document was given to the government and you have not used it. I don't even think that the member for St. Michael Northwest looked at it. None of them, the Minister of Tourism, but yet they're giving concessions on top of concessions, but yet they're not looking to save good foreign exchange that is used to buy fuel oil, bunker C. But we are talking about 100% renewable, going 100% renewable, and twiddling our thumbs. A state of flux exists within this government. Now, Mr. Speaker, in 2017, I came to this Lord Chamber, and I mentioned, and the member for Christchurch South, he's a heckler, as always, and I mentioned the draft energy policy. The draft energy policy that is critical for us if we want to move to 100% renewable energy. The draft energy policy has not been laid in this parliament today. So policy has to influence and dictate everything we do as it relates to implementation of this 100% renewable strategy, renewable energy strategy. But no energy policy, but yet we are seeing no reference to it in this document either. So I don't know how you are going to deal with how FTC is going to create the tariff framework that promotes investment for all categories of investors that are mentioned in this document. We need the policy document to be approved in this Parliament. We need the policy document. And Mr. Speaker, the whole transport system bothers me as it relates to renewable energy, because I said earlier that transportation accounts for 35% of the fuel import bill. Well, Mr. Speaker, the member for St. Philip North says 33. So there are into semantics and splitting hairs. We're here in the semantics and splitting hairs. These are facts, Mr. Speaker. These are facts. These are facts. And Mr. Speaker, there was a pilot study, a pilot electric transport study done. That is with the Ministry of Energy. That is with the Ministry of Energy. And it took into consideration buses, taxis, ZRs, minibuses, peak demand, and how we will deal with electric buses and electric cars in this country. But what has been done with or to this study? It sits in file 13 again. Another case of inertia, culture of inertia in the Prime Minister's ministry. That is how he functions. A culture of inertia. So I would like the Minister, the Right Honourable Prime Minister, and also the member for St. Philip North to tell us what will be done to this pilot electric transport study, because I know that there is a dealership in this country for electric buses. There is a dealership already established in this country for electric buses. And I would like this government to tell the Bajan public, if you are going to move to 100% renewable energy, we don't have any buses, but yet there is a study here sitting. What are we doing as a government? It takes the courage, Mr. Speaker. It takes the courage to change the things that you can. And I'm asking this government, in those words, the serenity prayer, to find the courage to tell the public what are the true state of affairs in this country as it relates to the reserves, it relates to renewable energy, what we will do. And but Mr. Speaker, that's not all. One critical factor in all of this, and I am giving you some information, remember, for St. Philip North. One critical factor in all of this, through you, Mr. Speaker, is the whole aspect of the license, the utility license. Because you cannot move to 100% renewable without addressing the renewable license. Light and Power had a 42-year license from 1986. It expires in 2028. It expires in 2028. But the government, up to today, has not communicated with Light and Power if their license will be extended. I understand they are trying to negotiate a 10-year extension. Now, pray tell me, Mr. Speaker, you cannot give Light and Power, the only utility person who operates the grid in this country, and they have to operate the grid. You cannot look at Light and Power, who's going to invest immense funds into their grid to ensure that we go to 100% renewable. Light and Power has a plan, Mr. Speaker, to go to 100% renewable by 2027. But you have not extended the license. And the license is critical when I speak about this pilot electric study, transport study, because Light and Power was part of this study. Because they recognize in order to move to 100% renewable, you have to engage the grid, you have to allow them to upgrade the grid, and no business will upgrade their grid unless you give them a license to do that. Because, Mr. Speaker, you know, Mr. Speaker, We have people in this chamber who think they know everything, and that's why we are in this state of flux, and that's why we cannot get anything implemented, because they sit over there and there are authorities on every single thing in this country. I want to give you the courage. I want you to have the courage to address these issues, Mr. Speaker. I want you to have the courage to address these issues, Mr. Speaker, because those are some of the issues in this country that we need to address. And Mr. Speaker, don't matter the amount of heckling that is done from the other side, week on. The people of this country are still facing the negative effects or severe effects of mismanagement in this country and poor financial management. Mismanagement in all affairs, in all sectors, and poor financial management. So you need the courage to change. But I know that the people, Mr. Speaker, they have the wisdom to know the difference. They have the wisdom. That is why speeches like these give them the wisdom to make good choices on their behalf. And I say to you, Mr. Speaker, the day is drawing nigh. The day is drawing nigh. But before I end, Mr. Speaker, because I don't need 30 minutes to get over my points like some who ramble in here, Mr. Speaker, I heard the honorable member for St. Michael West Central in his presentation. He mentioned the whole aspect of restoration of salaries. No, West Central. And I want to briefly say to this honorable chamber and remind the honorable chamber and the citizens of this country, the Democratic Labour Party came to this chamber and said the economy was turning the corner. Those were the words used. This economy was turning around. It was turning the corner. They can see light, but it is a blind corner in my view. And what they did, they used it as the basis by which they restored their 10% of their salaries. True. They use it to restore their 10% at a time when the civil servants are begging for an increase after 10 years. The citizens of this country, as a result of the lack of the social programs in this country, they are seeing hardship. They're facing hardship.
I remember. Yes, I remember.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, sir, I understand he said I made a statement. I have not spoken for the morning.
No, I remember. I am not.
But he said so.
I don't remember. I don't remember. I'm not taking any point or when somebody's else and just rush it back and forth. I'm not dealing with that. And secondly, though, if he said St. Michael West Central, I believe he meant St. Michael Central.
But he said that.
Mr. Speaker, through you, St. Michael Central, Minister of Social Care. Sorry about that, Mr. Speaker. Sorry about that. And I wish to make this a document of the House, Mr. Speaker. The Barbados Labour Party's Member of Parliament donations to the following non-profit organizations. We said we will not accept our 10%. I wish to make this a document of the House. And we have donated monthly and also the retroactive pay to organizations like the Challenger Creative Arts and Training Center, the Salvation Army, the Diabetes Association of Barbados, Barbados Alzheimer's Association, the Barbados Cancer Society, the Barbados Association of the Blind and Deaf, the Eden Laws Youth Charitable Trust, the HIV/AIDS Food Bank, and the Barbados Vagrants and Homeless Society. We have donated monthly $90,000 to these non-profit organizations. We were not as unfair as you. We are saying we are in this with the people of this country. We don't want back any 10% restored on our salary unless justice is served. And we have given the people of this country the wisdom to make the right choice. And I want you, the Democratic Labour Party, as the Serenity Prayer says, have the courage to tell the people of this country the true state of affairs of this country. Have the courage to tell the people of this country to answer these 8 questions as it relates to the financial affairs of this country, whether it is international reserves or whether it is the cut in employment, what has happened since you have sent home 4,000 employees and increased NSR from 2% to 10%. You promised to buy sanitation trucks, but you go up building a building for $24 million up in Vaucluse, and a truck costs $350,000. One truck costs $350,000. But yet, you will spend $24 million on a building that you can't get finished, and our garbage situation is worsening in this country. That is what the Democratic Labour Party has done to the citizens of this country.
Honourable Member, please wrap up. Your time has expired.
And Mr. Speaker, like I said, and I read the prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.